She grabs wrong suitcase at Subway, unaware the billionaire owner who can't forget her perfume. The leather handle felt wrong the moment Emma Chen grabbed it from the subway floor. Too smooth, too expensive, too perfect. But the doors were closing, the morning rush crushing her from all sides, and her interview at Morrison Industries started in exactly 17 minutes. She clutched the black briefcase to her chest and pushed through the crowd, never noticing the man in the $1,000 suit frantically searching the train car she'd just left. Alexander Morrison pressed his face against the subway door as the train pulled away, his heart hammering. That briefcase contained more than just contracts and portfolios. It held the only thing he had left of his mother, her final letter, still unopened after 5 years, waiting for the day he felt brave enough to read it. And now it was gone, carried away by a woman whose perfume still lingered in the air around him. Jasmine and vanilla, with a hint of something he couldn't name. Something that made his chest tighten with an emotion he'd spent years avoiding. "Sir, you need to step back," a transit officer said, but Alexander barely heard him. He was already pulling out his phone, calling his head of security. "I need every camera in the subway system checked, now." Before we dive deeper into this story of fate, chance, and the power of a single moment to change everything, I want to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. And if you're already intrigued by what's in that briefcase and why a billionaire can't forget a stranger's perfume, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Emma didn't realize her mistake until she was sitting in the waiting room of Morrison Industries, surrounded by other hopeful marketing candidates. She went to pull out her portfolio and instead found herself staring at documents that made her blood run cold. Acquisition contracts, confidential merger proposals, and there, tucked between financial statements worth millions, a sealed envelope with elegant handwriting. "For my son, Alexander. Open when you're ready to forgive yourself." Her hands trembled. Alexander Morrison. She was sitting in Alexander Morrison's building, holding Alexander Morrison's briefcase, about to interview for a position at Alexander Morrison's company. The same Alexander Morrison who was known for his ruthless business tactics and complete lack of personal warmth. The media called him the Ice King of Wall Street. "Emma Chen?" a crisp voice called. Emma's head snapped up. A severe-looking woman in a black suit stood before her. "Mr. Morrison will see you now. But I'm here for the marketing position, the interview with HR." The woman's expression didn't change. "There's been a change. Mr. Morrison is conducting this interview personally. Follow me." Emma's mind raced as she followed the woman into an express elevator. Why would the CEO interview a junior marketing candidate unless he'd already discovered she had his briefcase? Her stomach churned as the elevator climbed higher and higher, past floors of cubicles and conference rooms, up to the executive level where the air itself seemed to cost more than her monthly rent. The doors opened to reveal an office that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Manhattan in all its morning glory, but it was the man standing with his back to her that made her forget to breathe entirely. Even from behind, Alexander Morrison commanded the room. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his fingers through it. When he turned, Emma found herself staring into eyes the color of storm clouds, intense and searching. "You have something that belongs to me," he said without preamble. Emma's throat went dry. Yes. I'm so sorry. I grabbed the wrong briefcase on the subway. I was running late, and they look identical and—" "Jasmine and vanilla," he interrupted, his voice softer now, almost wondering. "With something else. What is it?" Emma blinked, confused. "I'm sorry." "Your perfume. There's a third note I can't identify." Heat crept up her neck. The billionaire CEO was asking about her perfume? "Cardamom," she said quietly. "My grandmother's recipe. She taught me to make it before she died." Something flickered in those storm cloud eyes. He moved closer, and Emma caught his scent, cedar and coffee, and something indefinably masculine. "It's been 5 hours since you took my briefcase. 5 hours of my security team combing through footage, tracking your path here. Do you know what was in that case?" "Yes," Emma whispered, then squared her shoulders. Including your mother's letter. His jaw tightened. You read it? No, but I saw it. And I know what it's like to carry goodbye letters you're not ready to open. She reached into her bag, her actual bag, and pulled out a worn envelope. This is from my father. 3 years now, and I still can't. I understand needing time. Alexander stared at her. This woman who'd accidentally stolen his most precious possession and somehow understood its weight. The morning light caught the gold in her dark hair, and that perfume, God, that perfume was everywhere, making him remember things he'd buried. His mother's garden, the jasmine that bloomed outside her hospital window, the vanilla extract she'd sneak into his coffee when his father wasn't looking. You were coming here for an interview, he said, trying to regain control of the conversation. Yes, marketing position. But I understand if you're hired. Emma's mouth fell open. What, you haven't even seen my portfolio? You don't know anything about my qualifications? I know you could have taken those contracts to any of my competitors. They'd have paid millions for that information. Instead, you're here apologizing for an honest mistake. He paused, studying her. And you understand about the letters. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate the offer, but I don't want a job because I accidentally blackmailed you. A smile ghosted across his lips, the first genuine smile he'd given anyone in years. You think you're blackmailing me? Aren't I? Unintentionally? Miss Chen, I've built $1 billion empire on reading people. You're not the blackmailing type. He moved to his desk, pulled out a contract. Standard marketing associate position, no special treatment. You'll report to Janet in marketing, not to me. Accept it or don't. But either way, I need my briefcase back. Emma set the case on his desk, her fingers lingering on the leather. Your mother's letter is none of your concern. The warmth in his voice vanished, replaced by the Ice King the media wrote about. Emma felt the dismissal like a physical force, but something made her push back. My father was a surgeon, she said quietly. Saved lives every day. But he couldn't save himself from the cancer that took him in 3 months. His letter. I know it's about forgiveness, too. Forgiving him for leaving. Forgiving myself for all the things I didn't say. She met his eyes. Whatever you need to forgive yourself for, Mr. Morrison, your mother already has. Alexander's hands clenched on the desk. No one spoke to him like this. No one dared. But this woman with her grandmother's perfume and her father's letter and her complete lack of fear was unraveling something inside him. The job starts Monday, he said curtly. 8 a.m., don't be late. Emma recognized the dismissal. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Mr. Morrison? My briefcase is probably still on the subway. The one you grabbed by mistake. It has my whole life in it, my portfolio, my laptop, everything I've worked for. He was already pulling out his phone. What does it look like? Exactly like yours. Black leather, silver clasps. She gave a self-deprecating laugh. I saved for 6 months to buy it. Wanted to look professional for interviews. Guess I succeeded too well. 20 minutes later, Alexander's security team had located her briefcase at the Lost and Found in Grand Central. As Emma left his office, clutching her recovered case, Alexander found himself standing at the window, watching her exit the building 40 floors below. That perfume lingered, weaving through his office like a ghost of possibilities. He returned to his desk and picked up his mother's letter, running his thumb over her handwriting. 5 years of carrying it, and a stranger had understood its weight in 5 seconds. He set it down, unopened still, but for the first time, it didn't feel quite as heavy. Monday morning arrived grey and drizzling, matching Emma's mood. She'd spent the weekend second-guessing her decision to accept the job. Working for a company whose CEO she'd accidentally robbed felt like the plot of a bad romantic comedy. But she needed the job, and Morrison Industries was the best in the business. She arrived at 8 sharp to find the marketing department in chaos. Janet Williams, the department head, looked frazzled as she handed Emma a badge and laptop. Perfect timing, Janet said. We're in crisis mode. The Hartman account is threatening to walk and we need fresh eyes on their campaign. Can you handle being thrown in the deep end? Emma thrived in the deep end. By noon, she'd identified 3 major flaws in the existing campaign and proposed solutions that had Janet's eyebrows climbing to her hairline. "Where did you say you worked before?" Janet asked. "Freelance mostly. Small businesses, non-profits." Emma pulled up her portfolio. "Nothing like Hartman Industries, but principles are the same. Know your audience, tell their story, make them feel seen." Janet was quiet for a moment. "You know Morrison personally interviewed you?" "I'm aware. He's never done that before, not for an associate position." Janet's eyes were shrewd. "Should I be worried about my job?" Emma's stomach dropped. "No. God, no. It was complicated, a mix-up. I promise I'm just here to work." Janet studied her, then nodded. "Good, because I don't care how you got here, Emma. I care that you can do the job, and based on this morning, you can. The Hartman presentation is Thursday. You're on the team." Emma threw herself into the work, grateful for the distraction. But she couldn't escape Alexander Morrison entirely. His presence permeated the building, his name on every document, his portrait in the lobby, his expectations driving every decision. And sometimes she'd catch a glimpse of him striding through the halls, always in motion, always alone. He never acknowledged her. Not once in 2 weeks did he even glance her way. Emma told herself she was relieved. The last thing she needed was complications with her boss's boss's boss. Then came the Hartman presentation. The conference room was packed with executives, including Alexander, who sat at the head of the table like a dark prince holding court. Emma tried not to look at him as she set up her portion of the presentation, but she could feel his presence like electricity in the air. The first part went smoothly. Janet presented the overview. Their senior strategist outlined the market analysis. Then it was Emma's turn to present the creative concept. She stood, clicked to her first slide, and froze. It was the wrong presentation. Instead of the Hartman campaign, the screen showed her personal project. A marketing plan for her grandmother's old neighborhood in Chinatown, trying to save local businesses from gentrification. Intimate photos of shop owners, stories of families displaced. A passionate plea for preserving culture over profit. The room went silent. Emma's face burned as she fumbled with the laptop, but the presentation kept advancing, showing more personal photos, including one of her grandmother teaching her to make perfume, crushing cardamom pods with ancient hands. "I'm so sorry," Emma stammered. "This is..." "Brilliant," Alexander said quietly. Every head turned to him. "This is brilliant," he repeated, leaning forward. "The emotional connection, the storytelling, the authenticity. This is what Hartman's campaign is missing." He looked at Emma, and for the first time since that morning in his office, their eyes met. "Show us the rest." With shaking hands, Emma continued the presentation. She talked about her grandmother's shop, about the community fighting to survive, about marketing as a tool for preservation, not just profit. When she finished, the room was silent. "Apply those principles to Hartman," Alexander said. "They're a family company being squeezed out by corporations. Same story, different scale. Can you do it?" Emma's mind was already racing with possibilities. "Yes. You have 48 hours. Janet, give her whatever resources she needs." He stood to leave, then paused. "And Emma, next time you want to save a neighborhood, come to me directly. Morrison Industries has a community development fund that might interest you." He left, taking all the air in the room with him. Emma sank into her chair, adrenaline making her hands shake. "Well," Janet said dryly, "that was unexpected. Looks like you've got work to do." Emma worked through the night, fueled by coffee and determination. She rebuilt the Hartman campaign from the ground up, weaving in the authenticity and emotion from her grandmother's story. At 3 in the morning, she was alone in the office, surrounded by sketches and notes, when she heard footsteps. Alexander appeared in the doorway, looking less polished than usual. His tie was loosened, his jacket discarded somewhere, and his hair definitely showed evidence of frustrated fingers. "You're here late," he said. "So are you." He entered the workspace, surveying her controlled chaos. "May I?" Emma nodded. watching as he picked up her sketches, studying each one carefully. This close, she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. "Your grandmother's shop," he said, holding up one sketch. "Where is it?" "Was. It closed 2 years ago. Rent tripled overnight." She couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. 40 years of serving the community, gone because someone decided the neighborhood was trendy. "I'm sorry." The sincerity in his voice surprised her. "It happens. Doesn't mean it should." He set down the sketch, picked up another. "This perfume you make, you sell it?" "No, it was something my grandmother and I did together. She said scent is memory made tangible. Every ingredient tells a story. Jasmine for grace," he said softly. "Vanilla for warmth. Cardamom for strength hidden in small things," Emma finished. She used to say that about herself. Tiny woman, but tough as cardamom pods. Alexander smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. "My mother loved jasmine, planted it everywhere, even tried to grow it in New York, said it reminded her of possibility." They stood there in the dimly lit office, two people sharing losses in the language of scent and memory. Emma wanted to ask about his mother, about the letter still unopened, but the moment felt too fragile. "I should let you work," he said finally. "Mr. Morrison?" Emma called as he reached the door. "The Community Development Fund. Were you serious?" "I'm always serious about business, Miss Chen. Submit a proposal. If it's as good as what you've done here, we'll make something happen." After he left, Emma sat in the dark for a long moment, processing. The Ice King of Wall Street had just offered to help save her grandmother's neighborhood. The same man who carried his mother's unopened letter had understood her grandmother's cardamom metaphor. She went back to work with renewed energy, but now Alexander Morrison wasn't just her CEO. He was a puzzle she was starting to piece together, one unexpected moment at a time. The Hartman presentation was a triumph. The clients were so moved by Emma's campaign that they signed a 3-year contract on the spot. Janet promoted her to senior associate that afternoon, and suddenly Emma Chen was the marketing department's rising star. But success came with visibility, and visibility meant more interactions with Alexander. He started requesting her specifically for sensitive accounts, the ones that needed what he called the Chen touch, that ability to find the human story in any business. They developed a rhythm. He'd send a brief email, "Yamamoto Electronics, Conference Room 3, Tuesday, 2 p.m. She'd show up with her laptop and ideas, and they'd spend hours crafting campaigns that were as much about emotion as strategy. He never mentioned that night in the office, never acknowledged the moments when their professional discussions veered into personal territory. But Emma noticed things. How he'd absently loosen his tie when they worked late. How his eyes would soften when she talked about her grandmother. How he'd started keeping jasmine tea in the conference room. 6 weeks after she'd grabbed the wrong briefcase, Emma was working late again when her phone buzzed. An unknown number, but the text made her heart skip. "The Chen proposal for Chinatown redevelopment has been approved. AM." She stared at the message, then at the follow-up that appeared. "Dinner tomorrow to discuss details. AM." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Dinner with Alexander Morrison was dangerous territory. She'd already let him too far into her head, spent too many nights wondering about the man behind the reputation. "Yes," she typed before she could overthink it. The restaurant he chose surprised her, a small Italian place in Little Italy, not the power lunch spots she'd expected. He was already there when she arrived, looking almost nervous as he stood to greet her. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling out her chair. "Thank you for approving the proposal. I know it's not your usual investment." "No," he agreed, sitting across from her. "But then again, you're not my usual employee." The waiter brought wine without being asked. Clearly, Alexander was a regular. Emma took a sip for courage, then said, "About that. People are starting to talk. About why you interviewed me personally, why you request me for projects. Let them talk." "Easy for you to say. You're not the one they're calling the CEO's pet." His jaw tightened. "Who called you that?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is perception. I've worked too hard to have people think I'm sleeping my way to success." "Are you?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "Sleeping your way to success." Emma's temper flared. "How dare you?" "Then why do you care what they think?" He leaned forward. "Emma, you've brought in 3 major accounts in 6 weeks. Your campaigns have increased client retention by 30%. Anyone who thinks that's about anything other than talent is an idiot." She wanted to stay angry, but his fierce defense of her work doused her temper. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple." He paused, then added more quietly, "Unless there's another reason you're uncomfortable working with me." The question hung between them, loaded with possibilities. Emma met his eyes, saw something vulnerable there that made her chest tight. "No," she said softly. "No other reason." He nodded, visibly relaxing. "Good. Then let's talk about your grandmother's neighborhood." They spent the next 2 hours discussing the redevelopment project. Alexander's vision aligned perfectly with Emma's, preserving the cultural heart of the neighborhood while bringing in sustainable businesses. He'd clearly done his research, mentioning specific shop owners by name, understanding the community dynamics. "You've been there," Emma realized. "To Chinatown." "Several times. I wanted to understand what we're trying to save." He hesitated. "I also went to where your grandmother's shop used to be. The new tenants are a chain juice bar." Emma's throat tightened. "I know. I can't walk past it." "We'll do better," he promised. "The Morrison Fund isn't just about preservation. It's about growth that honors the past." "Why?" Emma asked. "Why do you care about a neighborhood you have no connection to?" Alexander was quiet for a long moment, turning his wineglass in his hands. "My mother immigrated here from Greece when she was 17, worked in kitchens in Astoria, built a life from nothing. She used to say America was the only place where someone like her could have a son who'd one day own skyscrapers." His smile was sad. "She died before I could buy her the restaurant she always dreamed of. But I can help other immigrants hold on to their dreams." "Is that what the letter is about?" Emma asked gently. "The restaurant?" He looked at her sharply, and she thought he'd shut down again. But instead he said, "I don't know. I've carried it for 5 years, and I still can't open it. Pathetic, right? The man who makes million-dollar decisions before breakfast, afraid of an envelope." "Not pathetic," Emma said. "Human. My father's letter. I know it's about the surgery he didn't tell me about, the chance he didn't take because he didn't want to spend his last months in a hospital. I know he's explaining why he chose 3 good months over maybe 6 bad ones, but knowing and reading..." She shrugged. "Different things. What stops you?" "Making it real. Right now, they're still just possibilities. Once I read it, that's it, no more maybes." She looked at him. "What stops you?" "Fear that she knew what I'd become, that she saw it coming and tried to warn me." He gave a bitter laugh. "The Ice King of Wall Street. She'd hate that. She was all warmth, all heart, nothing like me." Emma reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. "You're funding neighborhood preservation. You keep jasmine tea in your office. You understand cardamom metaphors. I think she'd recognize more of herself in you than you realize." He turned his hand, interlacing their fingers. "This is inappropriate." "Completely," Emma agreed, not pulling away. "I'm your boss." "Several times removed, but yes. People will talk more. They're already talking." He squeezed her hand, then let go. "I can't be what you need, Emma. I don't know how to do this. Relationships, warmth. I'm better with contracts than feelings." "I'm not asking for anything," Emma said, even as her heart cracked a little. "But maybe we could be friends, real friends, not just colleagues." "Friends," he repeated, testing the word. "I don't have many of those." "Well, now you have one." They left the restaurant together, walking slowly through Little Italy. The night was warm, the streets alive with diners and tourists. Alexander looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him, hands in his pockets, tie loosened. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said as they reached the subway station. "Why did you really hire me? That first day?" He stopped walking, turned to face her. "Because you understood about the letter. Because you didn't use the information in my briefcase when anyone else would have. Because..." He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Because you smelled like possibility." Before Emma could respond, he was walking away, disappearing into the crowd. She stood there, heart racing, the scent of jasmine from a nearby flower shop making her dizzy with want. Friends. She could do friends. She was lying to herself, and they both knew it. The next few weeks tested that lie. They worked together seamlessly, two minds finding perfect rhythm in conference rooms and strategy sessions. But there were moments when their hands brushed over documents, when she caught him watching her with unguarded eyes, when he smiled at her terrible jokes. That friendship felt like a costume that didn't quite fit. The breaking point came, ironically, with another briefcase. Emma was rushing to catch a flight to Chicago for a client meeting when she grabbed her case from the taxi. It wasn't until she was at the gate that she realized her mistake. This wasn't her briefcase. It was soft-sided, expensive, with AMM monogrammed on the side. Her phone rang immediately. "Please tell me you have my briefcase." Alexander's voice was amused rather than panicked. "AMM?" she asked. "Really? Monogrammed luggage?" "A gift from my mother. And you're deflecting. Do you have it?" "Yes." "Do you have mine? The one covered in vintage travel stickers?" "Yes," Emma groaned. "I can't miss this flight. The Brennan meeting is at 2. I know. I'm at JFK about to board for London." A pause. "What hotel are you staying at?" "The Palmer House." "I'll have someone meet you there with your case. You can ship mine to my London hotel." "Alexander, I'm so sorry. I can't believe this happened again." His laugh was warm, intimate in her ear. "Emma, of all the mistakes to repeat, this one I don't mind. Safe flight." He hung up before she could respond. Emma boarded her plane, clutching his briefcase, wondering if the universe was trying to tell them something. In Chicago, she couldn't resist looking inside. No confidential documents this time, just a leather journal, some contracts, and... Her breath caught. A small bottle of perfume. Her perfume. The one she'd made for the company holiday party, gifted to a few close colleagues. He'd kept it. She closed the case, heart pounding. Friends didn't carry each other's perfume across continents. The Brennan meeting was a success, but Emma's mind kept drifting to London, to Alexander, to the growing impossibility of pretending they were just colleagues. When she returned to her hotel, her briefcase was waiting as promised. Inside, on top of her papers, was a note in his handwriting. "E, your grandmother was right. Scent is memory made tangible. Every time I smell jasmine now, I remember possibility." Ah. Emma sat on her hotel bed, holding the note, and made a decision. She pulled out her phone and typed, "Read your mother's letter. I'll read my father's. Together on video call, tonight. 8 p.m. your time." His response came quickly. "Why?" "Because maybe we both need to stop being afraid of possibilities." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then, "Okay." At 8 p.m. London time, Emma opened her laptop. Alexander appeared on screen, looking vulnerable in a way that made her heart ache. He was in a hotel room, city lights glittering behind him. In his hands was the letter she remembered from that first day. "You're sure about this?" he asked. Emma held up her father's letter. "No, but I'm tired of carrying unopened words." "Together, then." Together. They opened their letters in silence, each reading their dead parents' final words. Emma watched Alexander's face crumble as he read, saw him press his fingers to his eyes. Her own letter blurred through tears as her father explained his choice, told her he loved her, asked her to live boldly in the time she had. "What does yours say?" Alexander asked roughly. Emma wiped her eyes. "That he chose quality over quantity, that he wanted me to remember him laughing, not suffering, that he hopes I'll take chances, not just the safe path." She gave a watery laugh. "He'd have liked that I grabbed the wrong briefcase." "Mine says..." Alexander's voice broke. "She says she's proud of me. That she knows I'll build great things, but reminds me that the greatest things can't be measured in money. She tells me to find someone who makes me want to be warm again." He looked at the camera, at Emma. "She would have loved you." "Alexander, I'm falling in love with you." The words tumbled out like a confession. I've been falling since you walked into my office smelling like memories and carrying my mother's letter. I know it's inappropriate. I know it complicates everything, but I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Emma's heart was racing. I can't be another acquisition, another contract to negotiate. No, he agreed. You're the only thing in my life that doesn't fit in a spreadsheet. You terrify me. Good, Emma said. You terrify me too. They stared at each other across continents, two people holding their parents' letters and their own fears. What do we do now? Alexander asked. I don't know, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need a 5-year plan for this. I always have a 5-year plan. I know. It's adorable and annoying. Emma smiled at his expression. When do you get back? Thursday. Have dinner with me. Real dinner, not a business discussion. Yes. They talked for another hour about their letters, their parents, their fears. When they finally hung up, Emma felt lighter than she had in years. She'd read her father's words. The world hadn't ended, and somewhere over the Atlantic, the Ice King of Wall Street was learning to be warm again. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. Emma threw herself into work, but her mind kept drifting to that video call, to Alexander's confession, to the possibility of them. Janet noticed her distraction. You're glowing, she observed during a team meeting. New man. Something like that, Emma admitted. Good for you. Just don't let it affect your work. The Morrison presentation is next week. Emma's stomach dropped. She'd forgotten about the quarterly board presentation, where all senior associates presented their achievements directly to the board, including Alexander. How were they supposed to navigate that? Her phone buzzed. Alexander. Landed. Dinner at 8. Sending car to your apartment at 7:30. Emma. See you then. We need to talk about the board presentation. Alexander. No work talk at dinner. New rule. Emma smiled despite her anxiety. Maybe they could figure this out after all. The car arrived exactly at 7:30. Emma had changed outfits 3 times, finally settling on a simple black dress that made her feel confident without trying too hard. She'd made a new batch of her grandmother's perfume, adding an extra touch of cardamom for strength. Alexander was waiting outside the restaurant, not inside, not making her come to him, but waiting on the sidewalk like a nervous teenager. When he saw her, his face transformed with a smile that made her knees weak. Hi, he said softly. Hi. They stood there, drinking each other in, until he seemed to remember himself and offered his arm. Shall we? The restaurant was small, intimate, nothing like their usual business venues. They were seated in a corner booth, candles casting warm light over everything. You look beautiful, Alexander said once they were settled. You look nervous, Emma replied. Terrified, he admitted. I haven't done this in a very long time. Gone to dinner. Been myself with someone. He met her eyes. The real me, not the business version. I like both versions, Emma said, though I'm partial to the one who keeps my perfume in his briefcase. He had the grace to look embarrassed. You saw that? I did, along with your journal, which I didn't read, and contracts I didn't look at. I've learned my lesson about snooping in your briefcases. Our briefcases do seem to have minds of their own, he mused. First they introduce us, then they force us together again. Maybe we should thank them. Or buy different ones, Emma suggested. Bright colors. Hard to mix up. Never, Alexander said firmly. I'm superstitiously attached to mine now. It brought me you. The waiter appeared with wine, and they ordered without really looking at the menu. Emma was too aware of Alexander's presence, the way he'd rolled up his sleeves, the way he kept looking at her like she was something precious. Tell me something nobody knows about you, she said. He considered. I take cooking classes on Saturdays, have for 2 years. You cook? Terribly, but I keep trying. My instructor says I'm her most determined disaster. He smiled self-deprecatingly. My mother was an incredible cook. I thought maybe if I learned I'd feel closer to her. Do you? Sometimes when I manage not to burn things. He leaned forward. Your turn. Secret nobody knows. Emma bit her lip. I write poetry. Terrible, angst-filled poetry that would make my high school English teacher weep. About what? Lately? Briefcases and jasmine and men who are too complicated for their own good? His eyes darkened. Emma, I know. We should talk about how this works. The job, us, everything. Should we? Shouldn't we? He reached across the table, took her hand. What if we just didn't? What if we took your advice and didn't plan this to death? You hate not having a plan. I hate the idea of planning you out of my life more. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I can't be your direct supervisor. That's non-negotiable. But Janet runs marketing independently. I can recuse myself from your evaluations. HR can handle any concerns. People will still talk. Let them. My company, my rules. He paused. Unless you're uncomfortable. Your career comes first, Emma, always. My career is fine, Emma said. I'm good at my job. Good enough that people will get over the gossip eventually. I'm more worried about you. Me? You've been the Ice King so long. Are you ready for people to see you differently? He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. I've been cold for 5 years. You make me want to thaw. Dinner arrived, but neither of them ate much. They were too busy talking, sharing stories, building something new on the foundation of months of professional partnership. Alexander told her about his childhood, his mother's dreams, his father's distance. Emma shared memories of her grandmother, her struggles after her father's death, her determination to honor both their legacies. I want to meet her, Alexander said, when Emma described her mother. The woman who raised someone brave enough to carry unopened letters and steal CEOs' briefcases. She'd like you, Emma admitted. She has a thing for complicated men who need fixing. I don't need fixing, Alexander protested. No, Emma agreed, just thawing. They left the restaurant walking close together, Alexander's hand on the small of her back. The night was perfect. Clear sky, warm breeze, the city humming with life around them. Walk with me? Alexander asked. They strolled through the city, no destination in mind. Alexander pointed out buildings his company had developed, sharing stories about each one. Emma realized he saw the city differently than most, not just steel and glass, but dreams made tangible. That one, he said, pointing to a modest apartment building. First property I ever bought. Nearly bankrupted myself, but I knew it could be special. What made you sure? The light, he said simply. Every apartment had beautiful light. My mother always said a home needed good light to grow good lives. They'd circled back to Emma's neighborhood. As they reached her building, neither wanted the evening to end. Coffee, Emma offered. I promise not to steal any briefcases. Alexander laughed. Coffee sounds perfect. Her apartment was small but warm, filled with plants and photos, and the lingering scent of her perfume making. Alexander moved through the space like he was memorizing it, pausing at a photo of Emma with her grandmother. She looks formidable, he said. She was, 4'11" of pure determination. Emma started the coffee, watching him explore. She'd have grilled you mercilessly about your intentions. What would I have told her? Emma turned to find him closer than expected, his eyes intense. The truth, I hope. The truth, he repeated, reaching up to cup her face. The truth is that you've undone me, Emma Chen. Every defense, every wall, every carefully constructed barrier, you've walked right through them all with your wrong briefcase and your grandmother's perfume and your fearless heart. Alexander? I'm going to kiss you now, he said softly, unless you tell me not to. I'm not telling you not to. The kiss was everything their months of tension promised, soft and fierce, tender and desperate. Emma's hands fisted in his shirt as he backed her against the counter, both of them trying to make up for lost time. When they finally broke apart, breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. I want to do this right, he said. You're too important to rush. Since when do we do anything normally? Emma asked. We started with theft and blackmail. Accidental theft, he corrected, kissing her again. And you're a terrible blackmailer. The coffee maker beeped, forgotten. They moved to the couch, curling together like they'd been doing it for years. Alexander played with her hair while Emma traced patterns on his chest, both marveling at the permission to touch. "The board presentation," Emma said eventually. "How do we handle it?" "Professionally," Alexander said. "You present your achievements. I act like any other board member. We can do one day of pretending we're just colleagues. And after, we stop pretending anything." He tilted her chin up. "I want to take you to Greece, to my mother's village. I want to show you the jasmine fields she talked about." "That's a big step." "Too big." Emma thought about her father's letter, about taking chances. "No, not too big." They talked until dawn, making plans and unmaking them, kissing between words, building something neither had expected. When Alexander finally left as the sun rose, Emma felt like a different person than the one who'd grabbed the wrong briefcase months ago. At work, she threw herself into the board presentation, determined to prove herself beyond any shadow of doubt. Janet noticed her extra effort and pulled her aside. "Whatever's inspiring this level of excellence, bottle it," Janet said. "Your work has always been good, Emma, but lately, it's extraordinary." The day of the board presentation arrived too quickly. Emma dressed carefully, professional but confident, her grandmother's perfume for courage. She arrived early to find the boardroom already half full, Alexander at the head of the table looking devastating in a charcoal suit. He didn't look at her differently than any other presenter. His face was the perfect mask of professional interest as she walked through her campaigns, her successes, her vision for future growth. But when she mentioned the Chinatown project, she saw something flicker in his eyes, pride and warmth quickly hidden. "Excellent work, Miss Chen," he said formally when she finished. "The board appreciates your contributions." Emma nodded, gathering her materials. As she turned to leave, she caught the tiniest smile on his face, there and gone in an instant. It was enough. That evening her apartment buzzer rang. Alexander stood at her door with takeout from her favorite Thai place and a bottle of wine. "Thought we should celebrate," he said. "You were brilliant today." "You barely looked at me," Emma said, pulling him inside. "I couldn't," he admitted, setting down the food to pull her close. "One look and everyone would have known. You're not someone I can look at casually anymore." They ate dinner on her fire escape, watching the city lights come alive. Alexander had loosened his tie, relaxed in a way that still surprised her. This version of him, soft, unguarded, happy, felt like a gift only she got to unwrap. "I have something for you," he said as they finished eating. He pulled out a small wrapped box. Inside was an antique perfume bottle, crystal and silver, absolutely beautiful. "It was my mother's," he explained. "She collected them. This was her favorite. She said it was for the scent that changed her life." "Alexander, I can't." "You can. She would have wanted someone who understands perfume to have it, someone who makes their own memories with scent." He watched her examine it. "Will you make something new for it?" "What kind of scent?" "Whatever reminds you of us, of possibility." Emma kissed him, the bottle careful between them. "I know exactly what to make." 2 weeks later, she presented him with the filled bottle. The scent was complex, jasmine and vanilla, of course, but also cedar from his cologne, coffee from their late work nights, and a hint of leather from briefcases that couldn't mind their own business. "It's perfect," he said, dabbing it on his wrist. "What's it called?" "Possibility," Emma said, with notes of accidental theft. He laughed, pulling her close. "I love you," he said, the words coming easier now. "I love your terrible poetry, and your grandmother's perfume, and your inability to grab the right briefcase." "I love you too," Emma said, "even though you're complicated and have monogrammed luggage." "Especially because of the monogrammed luggage," he corrected. 6 months later, at the Morrison Industries annual gala, Alexander Morrison shocked everyone by bringing a date. Emma Chen, now Director of Creative Strategy, wore a midnight blue gown and her grandmother's jade necklace. They moved through the crowd together, a united front against whispers and speculation. "They're all staring," Emma murmured. "Let them," Alexander said, his hand warm on her back. They're just jealous I'm with the woman who single-handedly saved 3 major accounts and launched our community development program. Pretty sure they're staring because the Ice King is smiling, Emma corrected. Your fault entirely, he said, spinning her onto the dance floor. You and your briefcase ruined my reputation. Best mistake I ever made, Emma said, letting him lead her through the crowd. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, Alexander pulled out a small box. Emma's heart stopped. Before you panic, he said quickly, it's not a ring. We agreed to take things slowly. Inside was a key. To my apartment, he explained, which is really our apartment since you're there most nights anyway, but I wanted to make it official. Emma looked at the key, then at him. You know what this means? What? We'll have to label our briefcases. No more mix-ups if we're living together. Never, Alexander said firmly, kissing her. Those briefcases are family heirlooms now. We'll tell our children how Mommy stole Daddy's secrets, and he fell in love with her perfume. Children? Emma raised an eyebrow. Eventually, after marriage, after you finish conquering the marketing world. He pulled her close. I'm a patient man, Emma Chen. I waited 5 years to open a letter. I can wait for you to be ready for everything else. What if I'm ready sooner than you think? Then I'll be the luckiest former Ice King in Manhattan. They stayed on the balcony, holding each other as the party continued inside. In the distance, the lights of Chinatown glowed, the neighborhood they were helping to preserve, where Emma's grandmother's spirit lived on in every protected storefront. Thank you, Emma said softly. For what? For being terrible at grabbing the right briefcase that morning, for having security cameras that caught me, for taking a chance on a woman who accidentally stole your mother's letter. Thank you, Alexander countered, for being brave enough to bring it back, for seeing past the ice, for teaching me that the best things in life can't be planned or negotiated or contracted. Just stolen accidentally on the subway. Exactly, though I prefer to think of it as fate with a leather briefcase obsession. Emma laughed, the sound carrying across the Manhattan night. Somewhere in the city, 2 identical briefcases sat side by side in their shared apartment, witnesses to the beautiful chaos of a love story that started with a simple case of mistaken identity and bloomed into something neither spreadsheet nor strategy could have predicted. And in a crystal bottle on their dresser, the scent of possibility waited to remind them every day that sometimes the wrong choice leads to exactly the right place. The end. Thank you for joining me on this unexpected journey of love, briefcases, and the power of taking chances. If this story touched your heart, or reminded you that love can find us in the most unexpected ways, please take a moment to subscribe for more stories that celebrate the beautiful accidents that change our lives. And remember, sometimes the best things happen when we grab the wrong briefcase, trust in possibility, and let love thaw even the coldest hearts.